Welcome to the Father Focus podcast.
Father Focus.
Check.
Why are we talking about this? Why does it matter?
So shaping your kids into powerful people.
Bro, let that brother fly.
Check.
All right, let's go.
You ready?
All right, let's go. I was messing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another, hopefully, you think amazing episode of the Father Focus podcast.
You're welcome.
First of all, we want to appreciate you guys for hanging out with us, subscribing to the show, listening to our content. We hope it's helpful for you, and hopefully it's making you a better man and a better father. That's our goal. We want to help men win. We want to see fathers succeed, or as Jeremy enlightened me on a previous episode, for fathers with fathers. What?
It goes like this.
Podcast.
Welcome to the Father Focus podcast, a podcast by fathers for fathers.
By fathers for fathers. So there you go.
It's a little
I might get it eventually. I don't know. Maybe not today. But and so, kind of we talk about two things, right? We talk about manhood and fatherhood.
Yeah.
You probably can't be a good father if you're not first a good man. And so there's kind of an order to these things, and hopefully you're improving at both.
Yep. So,
let's kind of get into our discussion today. I read this book. It's pretty popular in common culture. It's called The Way of Men by this guy named Jack Donovan. So listen to different podcasts and influencers.
Is it somewhat new?
And
is it like a newer?
It's been released probably in the last 15 years.
Okay.
So, and so I was just intrigued. Everyone that I listened to kept referencing this book, and I hadn't exposed to it. So I read through this book, and I want to kind of talk about. This is gonna be a 2-part episode, so we're gonna do part 1 today. The idea is how to act like a man. And so, there's 2 things I'm thinking about. So we're going to discuss the book a little bit. I'm going to kind of give you guys some of the things I learned, but also, obviously we know, and if you don't, there's a scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 16 where Paul writes to the church and he says, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, let all that you do be done in love. But that statement, act like men.
Yeah.
There's an assumption made there, right? That men are supposed to act a certain way.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit today. But I don't know if you guys have any just initial thoughts off that statement, act like men.
Yeah, I think, first of all, in a certain sense, if you look at that passage, Paul did not need to necessarily clarify it so much.
Right? Yeah.
There was a generation that knew what it was to be a man.
Yeah.
There was a generation that knew what a man looked like, and every generation has to battle and reformat its own ideas of what the Bible says, of what we believe about ourselves, and obviously 2,000 years has gone by since Paul wrote this, and I think we're now in a day where maybe we need to.
Yeah, there is
recalibrate.
no objective definition to the term man in our culture today, which is just crazy. Probably the first time in history.
Which is insane. Oh, there is, but it's just being rejected. And we're here to reclaim, no.
Right.
There are 2 genders. We're not apologetic for that.
Right. We don't subscribe to the idea of referring people as penis-owning persons. We call them men.
They're just men.
So
biologically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what do you think? Just kind of the act like men statement.
I think it's, it's interesting that Paul, as a man, is calling other men to this thing called manhood. Like he takes the responsibility upon himself to say, hey, act like men.
Yeah.
And as Jeremy stated earlier, as we were discussing this verse, he didn't have to clarify it. It was very interesting that he expected them to know what he meant when he said act like men. There was a commonality. There wasn't like this divergence of thoughts relating to man.
Hey, before we get off into this episode, I want to read a quote, if that's okay, by a guy, a theologian. His name's Abraham Kuyper. And he said, when the principles that run against your deepest convictions begin to win the day, then battle is your calling and peace has become sin.
Yep.
You must, at the price of dearest peace, lay your convictions bare before friend and enemy with all the fires of your faith. So let me just go through it one more time for those who are listening, and then maybe we can just kind of springboard from that. But it says when principles that run against your deepest conviction. So people are having principles right now that are fundamentally at war with who we are as biblical Christian men. When
Right.
principles that run against your deepest convictions begin to win the day, then battle is your calling, and peace has become sin. Just to lay down and be like, all right, que sera, sera.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, we're in a battle. You must, at the price of dearest peace, lay your convictions bare before friend and enemy with all the fire of your faith. Abraham Kuyper.
Yeah,
And,
good.
I was really moved by that because
Yeah.
we are in a society when a small branch of society is making
Very loud.
Yeah.
very loud, small and loud, and they're making men be quiet.
Yeah.
They're making us shut up. Even the church at times closes its mouth, and we kind of stick to our nice, clean little thing. And it's like, rather than going and like, hey,
Right.
there's a war that's being
It's
done.
false peace. I've heard the term harmony and unity aren't the same thing.
Aren't the same.
Yeah.
And so we have a culture of harmony where, hey, let's just kind of put all the stuff that we disagree about under the rug and let's kind of hold up the banner that we're all unified.
yeah.
The truth is, some things, like I think the quote says, is some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth putting your stake in the ground, saying, I will not be moved on
Yeah.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think right now, and we talked about this before, I feel bad for guys in their like teens or early 20s because
know.
this is a time in history where there is no clear consensus even on what gender and sex are. I mean, now they're saying they're fluid. They mean the same thing. There's no distinction between these terms. And so, I think guys are realizing, okay, if I follow this ideology down to its logical end, I don't know what is upside down. Like,
Who
I don't
I
know what
am.
up
Right.
is. I don't know
Right.
what down is.
Yeah.
I don't even, there's just so much confusion.
Yeah, there's no compass of our day to tell us
Right.
our
So,
direction.
and
Yeah.
especially if you don't have a dad, imagine how much that
Yeah.
exasperates this issue. So, I found this book. I referenced it earlier. It's called The Way of Men by Jack Donovan. I don't espouse every idea in the book, but I think generally the concepts, as I was reading, I was like, these are arguably true throughout history. So here's kind of his premise. He said, our modern society today is an anomaly in history. Like most times in history, men and just people in general were at constant risk of death, war, disease. There wasn't like central authority that kind of kept the peace. It was like you either were the victim or the victor, right? Like the survival mode. And so there was this kind of like throughout history, what men tend to do is they find tribes of like-minded men to basically work together to, like protect and provide for a small group of
Okay.
people, more like think about like tribal mentality.
Hunter
Yep.
gatherer. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
strength in numbers.
yeah, so
right?
he's kind of thinking, okay, when we look throughout history, what characteristics and qualities have good, strong men always embodied? And so he makes a statement at the book, and I think this is going to be what we're talking about. He said there's a difference between being a good man and being good at being a man. And so he kind of lists these 4 qualities, and I thought they were all really good. He said, here's what I believe throughout history. When you look at strong, good men, here's 4 qualities they encompass. And there's different levels, obviously, to this. He said the first one is strength. The second is courage. The third is mastery. And the fourth is honor. And that is strength, courage, mastery, and honor. And so, we look at society today, and you're like, what does it mean to be a good man? I think that might be a good place to start. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on what I shared at this point, but I think that's like a good compass to start with, right?
Yeah, so I would like to wrestle with that thought just for a second and hear your commentary on
Okay.
the difference between being a good man and being good at being a man, because
Sure.
it seems that in order to be a good man, you need to be good at being a man.
Right.
It's
Right.
almost like they're interchangeable, but obviously he's trying to make a distinction with his, the structure of this phrase to do what?
Well, I think so. I think today, the society we live in, like, a lot of commentators are talking about how we live in a female-centric culture now.
Okay.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's more, there's certain
Men have shut up.
virtues.
Yeah.
There's certain virtues that are valued right now. Like a big one is being nice. Don't cause in controversy.
Right.
Like
No conflict.
Like put down your aggression, put down your dominance.
Suppress.
And so what a lot of people might say in culture today, a good man is a quiet man. A good man is a passive man. A good man is a, like even keel, Ned Flanders type guy.
Never,
like, you know, don't get in a fight. Don't argue with anyone. Be a good citizen. You know, like, you know, help the cat out of the tree, keep your lawn good. So, you know, as long as you're a consumer, a law-abiding citizen, you don't cause problems in society, then you're a good man.
Right.
But then there's this whole different reality of when men are in groups of men. Like, let's just say, for example, you take 50 guys and you drop them on a deserted island. Their priorities are not nice. Like, it's not like we just want to be nice to each other. It's actually about survival. It's about hierarchy. It's about dominance. It's about taking dominion over that. And so their values for what a good man are going to be very different than the culture we live in today. And historically, primarily live more in survival culture than the culture we live in today. Yeah. So I would agree with his perspective.
I would like to handpick the 50 guys I get to go on and be on an island with.
Well,
you two will be there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
But you have a few friends that are SEALs, so it might.
I would not want to be on a deserted island with 50 men for different reasons. You know, I mean, that doesn't sound very fun to me personally, but I think his point is, and I do agree with it, there are good men, and especially in our context, you know, we've been pastors for a long time and worked in the church. There's a lot of good men that I would never want to be like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't respect them.
Yeah. And I think it goes to like how who's defining what a man is. Right. You know what I mean? Like the culture is saying who determines what a good man, what was the term you said? A good man.
Good man versus being good at being a man.
Good at being a man. And a lot of the voices at
they want to tell us what it is to be good at being a man.
This is what it looks like to be good at being a man.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind, you know, you're respectful, you know, like the things Nathan said, that they're determining, they're giving us the definition of what it means to be a good man and what it means to be good at being a man. We noticed it was Paul, a man, a father, who said, act like men. Yeah. Like we need men who have clarity on what it means to be a man, to call men. It takes men to call men to be good at being a man.
Yeah. Well, he actually, I just remembered this. He says a statement. He said there's a difference between being good at being a man and being a good man, because he said a good man makes a well-behaved slave. And
docile.
And so and the conspiracy theorist in me would say, from a cultural standpoint, where we are in 2024, there's an attention by whoever, you know, cabal, Illuminati, whatever group you would say is controlling the world. If their goal is to control in a certain dominance, yes. I mean, theologically, we believe that he sits on a throne above every throne. He's in the third heaven, powers you know. Work. But I'm saying within the world we live in, that their agenda is strong, courageous, masterful men are a threat to a docile consumer society that we live in. Like, men are producers. Men are society nowadays. They're creating consumers where we buy products that help, you know, like grease the wheels of what is industrialism that we live in and consumerism. So like, I would argue that the reality we're living in now is because there's an agenda at play to basically neuter men. Like, I think that's where we are. And so I do think we need to really think through, you know, if like you're a guy listening to this podcast, you need to evaluate yourself. Like, and so I kind of want to talk about these characteristics, strength, courage, mastery, and honor, and basically kind of evaluate yourself. Because the truth is, when I look at another guy, I question, like, how good are you at those things? And my opinion and respect level of you is based on how good you are at being strong, about being courageous, about how masterful you are at your, you know, at your job, as a role as a husband, as a father, like, and then do you have any honor? And I think men instinctively do that. So I think this is a good time for self-evaluation. So let's kind of start with this idea of strength, right? There's multiple aspects to it. So like when we say the term men should be strong, what do we think that means?
Men should be strong.
Well, I think, you know, obviously it's a nuanced term. We have to talk about what, like, if
break it down,
bro. If we're gonna go into the gym right now, Nathan, I don't think we're gonna outlift Jermaine. I'm just gonna say. So,
Accept
Are
it.
you?
he just looks at
Listen,
me.
I don't know.
He's
I'm
like,
trying
I don't
to
know. Look
decide.
at it.
I'm trying to decide. There might be some things I could outlift him on now. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
But generally speaking, yes.
speaking,
Okay. Out of the three of us, Jermaine is probably strongest in a lot of categories.
Right.
But I've definitely taken a lot of ground.
He definitely
in the last
can't
few
throw
years.
a football.
I see you, man. I see you.
You heard me? I said you definitely can't throw a
I'd
football.
outrun
further
you
than
though.
me.
That's you're welcome.
You'd outrun me. I
Both
did
of
tear
you.
my Achilles, so
Oh, excuses. Here we go.
I'm
joking. Go for it.
But obviously strength, physically, like if you're, on a 6'6" frame, obviously you're going to have some just natural genetic giftings to be strong, and then the strength of character, which is obviously strength to be able to do what is right. Character, virtue, kind of interchangeable thoughts there, things that are built within you, which is, one of the most valuable parts of a person is, who they are in their character, something that's lost in our day. But so obviously there's two different dynamics. And I actually think a man should have both.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be weak. He should be able to be, as a man, to be protective, to protect his family, to physically.
You should be the guy where people ask to open the jar that won't open.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right. No, yeah, your kids, if they come to you and you hand it to your wife, like,
there's a problem there.
I mean, and so
Unless you don't have any hands, or there's like some extreme
Yeah, right.
situation.
But then so that guy we saw on Instagram the other day, he's changing a tire and the
With his
brakes
feet,
with
yeah.
his feet.
Come on.
He had
now.
no arms. I'm like,
No excuses.
like no excuses. Seriously.
Yeah.
So as far as strength, it's like, hey, and we've talked about this before, Jermaine. Just being strong, getting fit,
Mhm.
go to work.
Yeah.
Like literally go exercise, go run. I tearing my Achilles was an interesting thing for me because it forced me. It's like, hey, if you don't take this therapy serious, like it's going to have an effect on you the rest of your life. By the way, I had a time frame by which I had to, work out the scar tissue and all these things. And I'm being very deliberate because I do want to be active and I do want to be able to run and still play. Right, I'm still silly with my kids, but to really have the a kind of a disposition about us that we can go and progress physically, but then why can we not do that also in other parts of strength of our life and different dynamics?
So the internal, external, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think?
For sure. I mean, I agree. I mean, I was thinking the same thing. The internal and the external strength. Internally, and emotionally, an emotional strength, and internal strength. It's like a self-control. Like, we need
strength under control.
Yeah,
right?
strength under control. Right? That's what it is. And to our point, I think a man does indeed need to be strong. Mental and emotional strength. Proverbs talks about a man without self-control is like a city without walls. Right. And so there's this internal strength, this self-control, this ability to be calm in chaos, right, and move forward. And for those out there, maybe I hear people say, well, I'm not a man's man. I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't do those things. But I think strength is not just an absence of weakness. Strength is the ability to confront weakness, right?
That's right.
And in face of weakness, and to continue to move forward, to reach certain goals. Because strength may look different in different people, but the commonality is, there is a measurement of strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like for me, like Jeremy, you're saying we go to the gym and I'm stronger than you but you might be better at baseball than I am. Like you played baseball. I hit the ball farther than you. He's like, there's no mic.
We need to have like
go,
a
bro.
father-focused like triathlon.
Oh,
Dude,
my
that
gosh.
would be awesome.
No, it'll be a bunch of hurt
Okay.
people. No.
Hurt people.
Well, I'm saying
I
like
ain't
because
getting hurt.
guys just go at it. Anytime you have that kind of a thing going on.
No, I don't want to play tackle football with y'all.
Yeah.
But I'll
No.
do some other fun stuff.
But I mean, it's just they're different,
Right,
and
right.
so I don't want to discourage, as I have my son and I'm training him up, I'm encouraging him weakness is not the enemy. It's just an obstacle. And so it's just, you're not trying not to be weak. You're growing in strength. And so training him, teaching him, like we run these 2 or 3 miles together. We do these things I remember he was very discouraged in the beginning of he was confronted with his weakness. So what does a man do? We talk about strength.
Actually, yeah.
Go ahead, go for it.
I think weakness is the enemy, though. Don't you?
I mean, yeah, I'm not. I'm saying oftentimes a man when confronted with weakness he internalizes it. He becomes his identity. It's like my whole goal. It becomes more about not being weak than growing in strength. And so, what's driving me is this one thing versus a fear versus. So maybe I can rephrase that. So I'm not saying weakness is the friend, but I'm saying the motivation's different. My motivation for my son is I want him to be a strong man. So as he's confronted with weak, he looks at it and says, I can never do that.
Right.
And so I'm saying, hey, strength is growth. You know, you don't arrive at being a strong man. Let's say that way. You grow in strength.
Let me just say one more thing about strength, if I could. Strength is also a discipline to deny, right? Our appetites.
Right.
So there's a strength and a kind of courage. And I heard Jocko, Navy SEAL, Commander SEAL Team 6, and they were in a discussion and they were talking about fighting, and they were like, hey, if you get into a fight on the street, what are you doing? And he went, what are you talking about? He said, I'm running 9 times out of 10. He's like, if the guy's bigger than me, I don't care. If the guy's smaller than me, I don't care. I'm running. He said, because I know I can destroy this. I could kill this person, And he
easily.
said, I don't, yeah. He said, I don't want to fight. I'm always going to run. And so it's like, we already know. I mean, this is a man's man, right? He's well thought. He's well trained. He is an elite part of our society. He's in a fraternity where I think there's only 2,000 active SEALs or in the world right now. So he's in an elite fraternity, and he's saying, no. If somebody smacks me, I'm running. I don't want to do that. But if you put me in a corner, you just then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I love that perspective of it's like I don't have to brag and show that I could be the best guy. Yeah. So a certain level of restraint.
Yeah. So strength is not only or primarily to dominate the weak.
Exactly. Yes.
It's used. Yeah.
Maybe to support. Like I heard this phrase. A great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting.
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I think it's. There's the overcompensation of internal weakness,
sure,
and by trying to compensate it by an external appearance of strength. But strong men don't have to say they're strong.
Right.
They carry themselves in a way where you recognize and you're like, I'm not going to mess with that guy. But I do think, like, if we were to even let's just take a cultural evaluation for a second, and I think people have done this study, even just the physiological shape of men has changed. Like, culturally speaking, I would say throughout history, there's a standard: broad shoulders, strong arms, strong legs, like small waist, like defined chest, defined muscles. Western culture is not, for the most part. Yeah. I mean, so
it's probably
like what is going on? Like,
nowadays,
food, the American man today, he's round in his belly and, kind of round everywhere else, skinny legs. So, like, there's even like a physiological reality
but I don't think
to
that's
this too.
as big of a deal because of our society. Like, we're not going out hunting and protecting ourselves from lions and going farming. Like, I'm going to Walmart. So it's like you got to like do now the more work.
Yeah, but what I would say in response to that is your internal confidence does come in large part to your physical state. Like, if you're out of weight and overweight, out of shape,
sure,
you can't walk a mile without taking 20 breaks because you got to catch your breath, and you can barely pick up your kids. And, like, if your wife needs you to pick her up, you couldn't do it. Like there is definitely a correlation between that and your internal fortitude, internal resilience, internal confidence.
They're connected.
And so I would challenge you as a man, like, and I've, I had my own journey. Like, we interview a guy named Mike Pantile, who talks about how he had a fat kid phase. I had a fat kid phase, and I've come in and out of that phase throughout my adult life. And I have to work really hard even to maintain. You're like, well, you're not even that in great shape. Well, guess what? See me if I don't go to the gym for a few weeks.
Nathan,
but like,
we already said you look
but
good,
I think I've even seen my own life, like when I'm healthy, when I'm fit, when I'm watching what I eat, when I go to the gym, there's a way I carry myself versus when I don't. In seasons of life when I was just overcome by depression or anxiety or work, like, I was a different type of man. I didn't have the level of courage or confidence that I do now. And so I would even challenge you, if you're a man, you're like way out of shape and you can't do 5 push-ups, like, and the only workout you do is when you open up the refrigerator to eat the leftover pizza. Like, that is something you need to address in your life.
Part of our design.
And I would even say I love the practical side of that, and I know you do too. If you can't do 5 push-ups, okay, go try to do a half
Do
of one.
Yeah.
Start somewhere.
But realize it's a problem. It's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
granted, and I think they would probably know that too, honestly. But I know guys like that, and they know it's a problem. It's getting the motivation to do it. So go do a half a push-up, and then in 2 months be able to do a full.
But
one.
I think the positive in that too is you'll be surprised at how multiple pieces of your life come together when you get your physical life in order.
Yes.
Like, other pieces will come into play in correlation and connection.
Yeah,
to
definitely, because you're
know?
more apt. You're confronting the gym is you're confronting adversity, right? You're overcoming adversity. There's immediate adversity in the gym, and you're confronting it, and so it correlates to life, like the way you see it and view adversity or challenges.
All right, so we talked about that for a while. We probably won't be able to get into all 4 today, but maybe we can cover the idea of courage.
Okay.
So in the book, what he talks about, courage is the strength to stand your ground against an enemy.
Yeah.
Not backing down from a fight, right? Not being passive, not being dominated by someone else. It's when the fight arises, you don't run.
Yeah.
What does that look like for us today? We're not at war currently. I mean, I don't think you are. Maybe you are with your neighbor. I don't know. But like, generally speaking,
have good neighbors.
what does it look like to be a courageous man today?
Well, Jocko runs, right? He said he would run away. So is he? I'm just trying to understand. Is he afraid?
Is he a coward?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
the discipline,
Yeah, there's a strength in conflict avoidance as well. So like, let's say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a problem in society today. I would argue is we as a society are conflict averse.
Yeah.
And so nowadays that's considered, oh, you're a courageous man because you don't get into a fight. Actually, I would say that's just a mass and you're actually a coward. Like, we fight
but you can't
too
judge
little.
that on them, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying in general, this is a generic statements will all you
okay,
can put
okay.
Holes in this, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, culture today, I think we use that as an excuse to avoid fights we need to be fighting.
Yeah, let me answer.
Go.
Let me answer it like this. I love the military, and I've done so much just videos, YouTube. I love like the Medal of Honor depictions of these guys who won this great award, and without a doubt, the majority of them would always say, "I was absolutely afraid."
Right.
They were afraid, but then what they would always say is their training kicked in, and then they were able to, because of their training, almost like the muscle memory we talk about it, they were able to function in the midst of fear. They were able to do it. It's like their bodies took over. So I think, so you said, what does it look like? I think you're not going to be courageous. You're not just going to wake up if you're not courageous. You're not just going to wake up to be courageous. If you've never had a vision of what it is to be courageous, you might need to go and find that. You may need to go read books. You may need to go read your Bible and go read about what David did, and David and his mighty men. You may need to go and look outside of yourself, outside of your own home, to see what courageous men, and start working up an idea of what courage looks like. Like literally, you could just go on YouTube and go watch some of those Medal of Honor recipient stories, and they're amazing, to get an idea of what it is, what courage looks like, and how to function in the middle of fear. And I guess the ultimate point I'm trying to get to is you don't just wake up and do it. You've got to have a picture, and you've got to take those small steps to be able to do that. Because let's without a doubt, all of us have fears.
Yeah.
We all have fears, and sometimes we fail. But we can fail forward. I think I've said that before, and we can just keep going and progressing to where ultimately we can continue.
It reminds me of a quote. It says, "Under pressure," a Navy SEAL quoted it, but I think it was a Greek poet that before him says, "Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training." And so courage is not something that's just a feeling. It can be taught, it can be learned.
It's good.
It can be systemized. It can be, you know what I'm saying, a sequence of things. That's what the military does. Is that the training, the system helps them get the courage, helps them respond in a way of even though in spite of fear, the system it models courage. It helps them be courageous. He or she be courageous. And so you sink to the level of your training. Yeah. So we can train to be courageous. We can work at being.
But then also, like, there are some guys who are so good at it, and they are courageous, and they're not afraid. Like, so I came into contact with a Marine captain one time, and we were talking at a wedding, and he told me he was him and his unit were being deployed to Afghanistan, and so we're having a conversation, and he asked me to pray for him, and that he would function, he would do what he was called to do as a Marine, as a commander. He had all these, younger Marines underneath him. And so I prayed for him, and I was like, and then after I prayed, he said, thank you. I was like, hey man, hopefully you don't have any trouble. And he looked at me and he went, hopefully we do. We've been training for this. And I was like, dude, he is not afraid. Like, he's not afraid of the fight.
Right.
Is what
He's
I'm saying.
a different mentality.
Totally different mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, I hope you're protected. Hopefully you don't have to, get into a fight. He's like, no, dude, this is why I signed up. I want the fight.
But the fight is necessary, right? And he's been trained to engage in the fight. He has a way of engaging in the fight. It's not out of control. You know what I'm saying? He's leading men and women into a war zone.
Yeah. Let me read a quote. This is by Aristotle. He said, "Courage as a moral value is a will to noble action." And so we're talking about this from a military standpoint. These guys go through basic training. There's a period of time where they literally intentionally devote themselves to developing the skills for the fight. Yep. And so I think maybe a good way to end this episode is, how do we, in a practical way, in the society we live in, Western men, and the culture we live in today, what are some opportunities for us to put this into practice, actually get in the gym, mentally, spiritually, to develop courage? The first thing that popped in the head is Romans 1:16, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, it is the power of God unto salvation." Go out in public and talk about Jesus. Yeah. You will immediately feel resistance to that name, right? And a lot of people shrink back from the idea of, faith for them is very private, it's very personal. They do it within the safe walls of the church, but outside of that, they're bound by the fear of man, the fear of culture, fear of rejection, all those things. And so for me, there's got to be a willingness for men to talk about Jesus in main culture and public not spaces, just keep their faith private and personal. Like, we need to preach the gospel and not be ashamed of it. Yeah. And, there's a lot of ways we can talk about that practically. But, like, I remember one time I was going to lunch with this guy. He's a minister, like Christian, fairly well-known Christian. And we're just talking. And I noticed he was talking very loud about God. Like, to a point to where it was like everyone in the restaurant could hear him talking. There was part of me that was like, dude, can you, like, quiet down a little bit? Like, you're being disruptive. People kept looking at us. Like, I was even feeling a little bit embarrassed. And I asked him about it afterwards, and he said, I never want to be ashamed of God. And so I'm going to intentionally speak louder than I have
so everybody hears him.
To break the fear of man off of himself.
Okay, all right, cool.
So but like, what do you guys think? Like, how do we practice courage today?
I would say, I thought about it even in the home. You're talking outside the home, but you'd be surprised how many men don't pray for their spouse, don't pray for their wives. They feel inadequate. They feel, like they feel defeatism when it comes to their faith. Like, you taking your wife and leading her in intentional, time of hearing her heart and praying and speaking life over her, praying over your children, like intentionally, not now lay me down to sleep, pray to my Lord soul to keep, like intentionally.
Real prayers.
Real prayer, engaging with God in the heart of your child, praying over them, speaking life, edifying, building them up. So that is also takes courage. I've talked to many, like I said, many men, and many of them have never prayed over their spouse or prayed with their spouse. So courageously, courage can be engaging your spouse in prayer.
That's good.
I think at the root of what it is to be a man, we are conquerors. Like, we want to fight. We want a challenge. And if you're listening to this podcast, like, hey, analyze your own life and, like, see, hey, what am I afraid of? what am I afraid of? What are your fears? Like personally, I'm not really like Nathan's been knowing me a long time. I'm not afraid of like things. Like I'm not afraid of animals. I'm not afraid of like that stuff doesn't get to me. I am afraid of failing. Probably the biggest thing that's probably been a restraint. And I have to be courageous in that category. But it's like, take stock of your own life and say, okay, what's holding me back? I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, you must do the thing that you think you cannot do. So it's like, if there's something in your life that maybe it's learning a new language, maybe it's reading a novel. For me, like I have always wanted to read Tolkien, like the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And I just was like, it's just so much time. I'd rather read my Bible, and I'm like, no. So not that I'm afraid of doing it, but it's like, I just could never get myself to do it. And I'm like, no, it's time to do it. But we have to do the thing that we're afraid to do. You must do it. And when you're going to build stock in yourself. You're going to put a kind of a currency, and you're going to build yourself up by doing and attempting to do the thing that you think you cannot do.
Like
so
that.
go and do it.
Yeah, intentionally putting yourself in situations where you're weak.
Yeah,
where being a learner.
This is why I want to arm wrestle you, Jermaine.
Yeah, like I want to, like, for me, I'm working on acoustic guitar, and I've missed some things. I'm like, I got to get more discipline with it, but I'm like, I've always wanted to learn music, how to read music, and all those things. But so I'm working at acoustic guitar, and it's like, man, I'm like confronted every day with when I practice, like, dude,
this guy saw a Rubik's Cube. I don't know if we talked about it in the podcast, but he saw a Rubik's Cube, and he he learned how to do a Rubik's Cube. Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm a learner. I like learning things.
Yeah.
But it's humbling to put yourself in situations to where, it fuels you for the next challenge.
Yeah, that's good.
Small wins, small challenges, overcoming, those little wins, they build up and they add up like compound interest over time. Yeah. So just starting small. Hey, I'm afraid of this, and I want to overcome this, and then I want to overcome that.
Yeah.
And so
it makes sense. I mean, I think when I started taking lifting in the gym more seriously, I'd see these programs, and there was these exercises I had never done before. Deadlifting was one of them. Yeah. And I mean, for weeks, I just avoided it. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And then I remember I'd be in the gym the first few times and feeling so embarrassed, being around all these guys that are like deadlifting all this weight, and I look like an idiot, probably doing it wrong, like with a little bit of weight on there. And there was a big tendency in me to be like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, I look like an idiot. I'm going to fail at this. These guys are going to judge me. So I avoid it. And then I kind of got to this point where I was like, who gives a frick what they think about me?
Right.
They started somewhere too.
Yeah. Well, even beyond that, I was like, I don't care about others' perception of me. I am in the pursuit of strength. Mm-hmm. And if this is going to help me grow, then I'm going to do it wrongly to learn it rightly. Mm-hmm. So,
but you better deadlift right.
Yeah, I've hurt my back multiple times doing it the wrong way.
Jermaine will help you out.
He's got it.
But I think the point I'm trying to make is, and maybe a good place to end is, there's probably fights in all of our lives as men that we've been avoiding.
Sure.
We've been passively moving past them, avoiding confrontation, false harmony. Could be in your marriage, something that needs confronting. Could be in your personal life with you and God, your spiritual life, your compromise, some sin issue. Could be with your kids. You're the derelict father who's allowing your kids to do things or allowing things in your home that you shouldn't, but you don't want to take the energy to get in the middle of that mess. Nathan. I think these are the kind of things that hopefully is a wake-up call for you. Like, those are the fights you need to stop avoiding. That's courage in that situation. And then ideally, man, when we get our lives in order, our families in order, our marriage in order, then God can trust us with greater stewardship within our churches, our neighborhoods, our cities, our states, we have a responsibility as men, not just to care for our own world, but to care for the world that God created. And as Genesis tells us, take dominion, like assert your authority, bring the kingdom every place you go. I mean, that's the New Testament, like, extenuation of Genesis 3 is your kingdom come, your will be done, every place I am as it is in heaven. And so, get back in the freaking fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So we'll probably pick up. So this part
Yeah.
1, right? Act Like Men. We'll pick up part 2, Act Like Men,
It's gonna
talk
be
about mastery and honor. But just want to thank you guys for being a part of what we're doing. I mean, our heart as fathers and husbands and men is to see men get strong, like to become courageous. So our ask of you is 2 things. Like, we're really pushing our YouTube right now. So if people can go on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, but also we're on pretty much all major platforms right now. Like, share this with other men. Men are not dying from too much encouragement. Like, that's not an issue any man is facing. Men are discouraged. So send this to men, encourage them, be a friend, a brother, somebody else, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Father Focus.
tune in.
Adios.
Thank you, guys.